For 8 years, one man ruled Uganda with terror, absurdity. His name was Idi Amin, a towering figure who called himself the Conqueror of the British Empire, a self-styled president for life, and a man whose bizarre antics often masked the brutality that defined his reign. To the world, he was both a spectacle and a nightmare. And to his people, he was the Butcher of Uganda. But Amin's downfall wouldn't come at the hands of global superpowers. Instead, it came from one single, arrogant mistake, an invasion of a neighboring country he thought would crumble beneath him. That miscalculation would spark a war, unite his enemies, and bring his bloody rule crashing down in just 6 months. This is the story of how tyranny met its end. Was born around 1925 in the remote northwest of Uganda. His childhood was marked by poverty, little formal education, and a reputation for physical strength rather than intellect. In 1946, he enlisted in the King's African Rifles, a regiment of the British colonial army. He started humbly as an assistant cook, but his size, stamina, and ferocity quickly set him apart. Amin became a skilled soldier and a champion boxer, holding Uganda's light heavyweight title for 9 straight years. When Uganda gained independence in 1962, Uganda's first prime minister, helping him consolidate power. By 1966, Amin was commander of the entire Ugandan army, a man whose influence stretched far beyond the barracks. But power breeds suspicion. Obote began to fear the soldier he had once trusted. And while Obote attended a summit abroad in January 1971, Amin made his move. Tanks rolled into Kampala, and within hours, Amin had seized control of the country in a military coup. He promised to root out corruption, restore stability, and act as a humble soldier serving his people. For a brief moment, Ugandans celebrated, but behind the smile and the soldier's uniform was something far darker, and it wouldn't take long before the mask began to slip. The Reign of Terror. By 1972, the mask of the friendly soldier was gone. Idi Amin's Uganda had become a nation of fear. His secret police and the dreaded State Research Bureau hunted anyone suspected of disloyalty. Soldiers stormed villages, prisons filled with screams, and bodies began to disappear. The Akoli and Lango peoples, once loyal to Obote, were targeted with merciless violence. But Amin's reach didn't stop there. Anyone with a voice, anyone who could question his rule, was silenced. Estimates say between 100,000 and 500,000 Ugandans were murdered in just 8 years. Witnesses later recalled Amin's own brutal hand in torture sessions, reveling in the suffering of his victims. The world had once seen him as a charismatic soldier, but inside Uganda he had become something else entirely. A tyrant drenched in blood, earning the name history would never forget, the Butcher of Uganda. The Economic War. In 1972, Idi Amin made a decision that would cripple Uganda for decades. He launched what he proudly called an economic war. His target was Uganda's Asian community, tens of thousands of families of Indian and Pakistani descent who had lived in the country for generations. He accused them of sabotage and greed. He gave them just 90 days to leave. They were forced to abandon their homes, their savings, their life's work. Their shops, factories, and farms, the backbone of Uganda's economy, were handed over to Amin's loyal cronies. Within months, production collapsed, shelves went empty, and Uganda's economy began to unravel. But Amin didn't care. He declared victory, boasting that Ugandans would now control their own wealth. In reality, the country was being gutted from the inside, ruined by arrogance masquerading as nationalism. Absurd power. Even as his country collapsed, Idi Amin's behavior grew more bizarre. He buried himself under a mountain of self-given titles, styling himself His Excellency, President for Life. He sent unhinged telegrams to world leaders. For many outside Uganda, he became both a monster and a spectacle, his brutality hidden beneath a layer of absurd theater. But for Ugandans living under his rule, there was nothing funny about it. Behind the circus act, the killings and fear never stopped. For years, Amin's most dangerous rivalry was with his southern neighbor, Tanzania. Its president, Julius Nyerere, had been a close ally of Milton Obote, the man Amin had overthrown. Nyerere gave Obote and thousands of Ugandan exiles safe haven, refusing to recognize Amin's rule. The tension never went away. Amin constantly hurled threats, even challenging Nyerere to settle their differences in a boxing ring. In 1972, Ugandan exiles tried to invade from Tanzanian soil, but the attempt failed, only deepening Amin's paranoia and rage. By 1978, his regime was crumbling from within, the economy shattered, soldiers deserting. Amin made a catastrophic decision. He turned his anger outward. When mutinous troops fled across the Tanzanian border, Amin seized the moment. He ordered a full-scale invasion of Tanzania's Kagera region. His army looted, killed civilians, and declared the land annexed to Uganda. But Amin had no idea that this reckless gamble would set in motion the war that would destroy him. Amin's invasion was the final straw. Tanzanian President Julius Nyerere declared war. The Tanzanian People's Defense Force mobilized with astonishing speed, swelling from 40,000 to over 100,000 by recruiting police, prison guards, and militia. Even more crucial, Nyerere united the Ugandan exiles, forming the Uganda National Liberation Army, or UNLA, to fight alongside his troops. On paper, Amin still had advantages. Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi sent thousands of soldiers and heavy equipment to support him. But Amin's own army was a hollow shell. His men were more interested in looting than fighting. The Tanzanians, on the other hand, were disciplined and masters of bush warfare. They outmaneuvered Amin's forces, slipping through swamps and forests to strike from unexpected angles. Battle after battle, the so-called Butcher of Uganda watched his army crumble. The war he thought would secure his power had instead opened the door to his downfall. By early April 1979, the Tanzanian UNLA coalition had pushed Amin's forces back to the gates of Kampala. His army was shattered, his Libyan allies overstretched and isolated. On April 10th, the final battle for the capital began. Amin's troops barely put up a fight. Many fled, abandoning their weapons. The very next day, April 11th, liberation forces marched into Kampala. Crowds poured into the streets, cheering and celebrating the end of 8 years of terror. Amin himself was nowhere to be found. The Butcher of Uganda had already fled, boarding a plane with several wives and children. He first sought refuge in Libya, then Iraq, and finally Saudi Arabia, where he was granted asylum on the condition he stayed out of politics. His brutal regime collapsed in just 6 months of war, but the man responsible for so much bloodshed escaped justice entirely. In Saudi Arabia, Idi Amin lived a life of comfort and quiet exile, a shocking contrast to the chaos he had unleashed on Uganda. He could never return to politics, never attempt a comeback. For years he lived like this, shielded from the world, as if the horrors of his regime were just a bad dream that could be forgotten. But Uganda could never forget. In 2003, after years of seclusion, Amin's health failed. On August 16th, he died of multiple organ failure in a Saudi hospital. When Amin fled, Uganda was left shattered. The economy he had crippled with reckless decisions remained in ruins. Generations would carry the trauma of his mass killings, the families who never saw loved ones again, the communities torn apart by fear and suspicion, the silence left behind where voices once spoke out. After Amin's fall, Uganda didn't immediately find peace. The country spiraled through more conflict and instability until Yoweri Museveni finally took power in 1986, promising a new direction. History remembers Idi Amin in contradictions. He was absurd, a man who gave himself laughable titles and sent unhinged telegrams to world leaders. But he was also monstrous, a tyrant whose cruelty destroyed hundreds of thousands of lives. Idi Amin's arrogance ended his rule, but not his life. He died free, but his name endures. A warning of what happens when absolute power meets unchecked cruelty.